a bit on how you saw this announcement of the normalization or Yahweh as well, when you were sitting in China and suddenly had this announcement thrust upon you.
Actually, I was at that time, 1979, I worked in the French Association for almost 4 years because I graduated from University of Wuhan, majoring on English. So I began to work in the Friendship Association almost for 35 years. But we were so happy to see the diplomatic relations being announced at the time, the normalization of our two countries. Because to us, since we grew up during the, actually I was born in '53, that was the time of Korean War. And when I grew up, we watched movies about Korean War. And we read news about Vietnam War. So we thought Americans at the time, the impression, just like monsters. But after the, actually Nixon's visit, the association at that time was the only one which could receive American friends. So each year we received 12 delegations from the US, and each delegation was composed of about 20 to 30 people. So that's why after I graduated from university, I began to work with American friends. So it totally changed my image of American people, because I thought all American friends were very polite, well-educated. Like we Chinese always say, leaders first, but American people say ladies first. So that's very different. And also this year marks the 30th anniversary for me coming to the United States. In 1979, actually May 1979, accompanied governor from Hubei province, Mr. Chen Pixian, to come to visit the United States. That was the first, we call it province and state, like sister city relationship being signed in May of 1979. I could show you another example. I couldn't eat any food, Western style, so I almost died of starvation. Only thing I could eat, there was bread with butter. However, today, I could show you how many restaurants, like McDonald's in China, over 1,000 throughout the whole country. 2,500 Kentucky Fried Chickens. They are junk food, but see how young people don't like them. That shows all these changes. So we really appreciate, just like President Carter said this afternoon. He said maybe another 100 years, maybe 1,000 years, the relationship between China and the United States would still be considered as the most important bilateral relationship. So I appreciate that very much. As also, like you mentioned, our great leader Deng Xiaoping, who signed diplomatic relations with you, the treaty, so communicate with you. We could also see the 30 years of Chinese government practicing opening up policy. So tremendous changes have taken place in China. So that all, we should say, is not a coincidence, but it's true because of this relationship. Because all this cooperation with American people, American friends, China now makes such a big progress.
Mary, you went to China. Oh, sorry.
Well, in July of 1978, I was in Washington at the National Academy of Science. And one night I received a phone call from Mike Oxenberg, who was on a plane coming back from China. President Carter had sent his science advisor, Frank Press, to China to demonstrate that the United States was interested in having extensive ties in education and in science and in technology. And this group was coming back from China. So I was asked to come to Andrews Air Force Base to meet the group. And I was told then that Deng Xiaoping had said that he wanted to send, at least beginning in January, 500 Chinese students to the United States. And we needed to get ready. This was, in my world at that time, absolutely unanticipated. For years we had hoped that maybe you would have 5 or 10 students go from the United States to China. And vice versa. But suddenly, the thought that China was going to really open up its educational circles was unbelievable. Now, they never gave way, that normalization was in the process of being discussed. But I had a sense something was going to happen, you know, as a result of that. But John, to get back to your broader statement, I think the normalization process that President Carter put into place was really quite distinctive, because when Deng Xiaoping came, they signed many different agreements. It wasn't just a political relationship. There were many layers of both governmental relations, people-to-people relations, commercial relations. So clearly you envisioned from the beginning a really broad and deep set of relations with China.
Judge, I had a word. I'm not
Please.
trying to preempt
This is a
Yahweh.
You are
Well, to follow up on Frank Press' visit to China concerning student exchange. When I was president, I rarely got waked up in the middle of the night by one of my assistants. But one night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I got this telephone call from Frank Press, my son's advisor, who was in Beijing, and I woke up groggily. I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Frank Press." I said, "What's the matter? Is something bad wrong?" He said, "No." He said, "I'm with Deng Xiaoping. He's standing right next to me. And he's asked me a question. Can we send 500 students to be educated in American universities? And he won't wait for me to get an answer. He wants an answer now." And I said, "You tell Deng Xiaoping he can send 100,000 students." And I hung up the phone. And within 3 or 4 years after we normalized relations, we had 100,000 Chinese students in American universities. So he was very surprised about that. He later offered to send me 5 million Chinese. I offered to send him 10,000 American news reporters. He said, "No, you keep your reporters, I'll keep my people."
I don't mind being interrupted by President Carter. Because when you have two presidents, President Carter, President Bullock, two vice presidents, President Li Xiaoli and President Stringlaw, I don't want to say anything.
We all know who's in charge, Yahweh. We all know who's in charge.
In December the 16th, 1978, I was 18 years old. I was a sophomore in college. My wife is in the audience. We're of the same class. We're astounded to hear that the two countries are normalizing relationship. I thought either President Carter, there's something wrong with him, or there's something wrong with our great leader, because China and the United States, what are we talking about? Because in China, Madame Li mentioned, we grew up with the mission that is to destroy the United States. And we truly believe China is getting better and better, and the United States is getting worse and worse. There is really no need for the two countries to come together. We're equipped with a language, and will expose the vices and the corruption, degeneration of this country, and then we're going to be victorious. And I never imagined so many years later I would work, for President Carter. So last year I wrote a book which is called Barack Obama, the Man Who Shall Change America. I use that title because I'm working for one president who has already changed the world. Lastly, there is a saying in China, 30年河东, 30年河西. So 30 years you're on the east side of the river, another 30 years you're on the west side of the river. So down the road, another 30 years, United States and China, there will be so many ferries across the Pacific, we don't really mind which side we're on. We're going to be all together, and President Carter actually run the first ferry. So like so many Chinese or Chinese Americans here, we all thank you for opening the door that we're able to come to this great country. Thank you.